Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. Now I consider my two main books, the Martial Art Code and the other book I wrote, which has different names, but it's about getting to the point. It's 4 or 5 pages long. It's about getting to the point of life and the Bible and how to do the work of God. The Martial Code I just tried reading here a few moments ago, and it didn't go so well because there's a lot of wind here right now. But basically the first point is about character. One must put the highest cause above all things. I also talk about how brute force is not divine force, right? Horus is a deity of wisdom, right? Horus is basically the true form of Jesus, the true form of Horus, because both of them are talking about being the Son of God, right? The Son of God means the person who's established the throne in righteousness, the champion, the bridegroom, Psalm 19, the ideal man, the old what would Jesus do? Why? Because that's the ideal response. So as we look at the code, it's a code of existence, a code of behavior, a code of moral precision to perfect the exceptional adept, the exceptional student. So when one really commits to doing what is fair and just and right, they really make gains in life. So as I go through, Santa Cruz, and I see people, right, and I say, okay, these people look like they're trying to have fun. Some are older people, live here, and they're kind of walking their dog or something. But everybody could benefit from my wisdom. But more importantly, my conviction. I'm morally convicted. I choose to persevere in wisdom. I choose to not conform. I choose to carry my cross, as they say. And that's part of what the martial code is about, right? The word martial is like the word martyr. In a sense, life is the martial artist versus the merchant, right? The monotheistic, perfected martial artist versus all the merchants that refuse to put morality above, being a merchant. As I pointed out earlier, the word merchant is a play on words from mere chat. Now, I'm not here to kind of criticize business owners or something, okay? But you have to look and see that Baal is a deity of merchants and sailors and pirates and of rape by deception, which is obviously wrong. It's obviously a little bit uncomfortable to talk about that particular topic in public, and that's part of why it's so sad that they suppress my videos. As I try with all my heart to convey the truth in a way that God finds acceptable, I find that I'm very successful in doing that. People aren't successful when it comes to receiving the truth. One of the reasons why my videos are suppressed here in America, and they'd be suppressed anywhere, I'd imagine, anywhere on the planet, is because people don't have the heart to insist on justice for their society. And as they conform to the various compartments that the governing class has them in, they fail. And part of it has to do with how they use things, how they use religion, how they use martial arts, how they use, their stations in the government, how the officials have chosen to be wicked. They've chosen to come into the spirit of wickedness and complicity. And so that's a big part of the martial code, points 1 through 10. If I remember, I'll put in the comments a link to a video where I read the martial code to you. I actually have videos where I read the martial code. I have a video where I read my other book as well. And I have a video, if I'm not mistaken, where I read one of my first books, which is probably like 28 pages. And it was less direct. I did a better job in the Bible of putting the information into just 28 pages and touching on Egypt and helping you connect these ideas to Egyptian mythology, which, by the way, has been corrupted over the years, what have you. My religion isn't Egyptian religion, right? My kingdom is not of this world. It's not Egyptian, it's not Roman, it's not American, it's not of any nation of this world. My religion is universal, pinpointed moral precision. That is my religion. Scrambling to look at what is right. So we look at the idea of nerves, for example. There was once a Greek philosopher that said that pain exists in your head. Well, one of the reasons why, the pain only exists in your head, that's in your mind, it's in your imagination, right? One of the reasons why he's wrong is that nerves formed. Why did nerves form? Because there was a need for that to occur. Okay, it formed naturally. They formed naturally and not artificially. Nerves are responding to the need to feel a sensation, or for the brain to be signaled in response to an event that, as far as anyone can tell, is actually occurring. So to jump to the conclusion that it's all in your head must be false, because you can close your eyes, someone can come up behind you and smack you upside the head, and you'll feel that, unless you're drunk or something else is going on. If your brain is functioning properly past a certain point, that you will feel that pain. Okay? And that Greek philosopher brought up these arguments in the tradition of rejecting the martial art order, because where it takes you to admit that martial arts are showing us something is away from the philosophies of people into witchcraft and people who are fanatic scientists, mad scientists, what have you. Because we have to go on what the evidence tells us. The evidence is presented, not the fabricated evidence of the state. Okay? They didn't meet the burden of proof to prove that their evidence is reliable. So then it's not scientific or logical to then follow that proof when they can't prove that their studies are valid. But we can easily show that they have ulterior motives, and they come together with think tanks and so on and so forth, and these colleges are prostituting themselves, so to speak, and it's a mess. So as we look at things, what information do we have? We have that the righteous martial artist is so great that even in Western society, you have what the East superimposes on the righteous martial artist, like Ip Man, right? Bruce Lee. Okay, the East meets West, meets the fraternity structures and whatever kind of governing class breeding game that the Hollywood groups are playing, right? And they present that idea, which is greater than the idea of other paths in life when you look at what it's superimposed on, right? The Eastern martial artist, in his perfection, his perceived perfection, is superimposed on the morally precise monotheistic martial arts. Now, how do we know? We know because of achievements. We know because of bearing fruit, right? Bearing fruit in keeping with a superior spirit. Now, I'm not saying this to insult people from the East, I happen to like people from the East. If anything, there's some kind of favoritism toward them, if anything, but I'm a fair judge. And so anything like that, I address in my logic. I make sure that everything's fair and just and right. I bring this up to prove my point. The point is that the ideal path is the morally precise top martial artist. That doesn't mean that if you're not a martial artist that your life isn't worthwhile. But if you aren't struggling to build character, then your life isn't worthwhile. So just like angels are said to do war arts, they're depicted with swords and spears, so the pinnacle of the human order is a martial art order. That's why angels resemble martial artists, and this a Western depiction of something that goes beyond what they seem to be depicting. The wings stand for traversing into the spiritual realm. Now where? Okay, they're traversing into fairy la la land instead of traversing into the realm of righteousness and justice, right? Going back to the sword and the drawing the spirit, and the word spear and the word it, right? Spirit. And of course, it is pretty straightforward that I'm right about these things, and there's no other way that it could be. In terms of, if you look at it in terms of science or something, in terms of the logical assumption, you see how this is where science and my religion, they come into contact, they come into agreement. Because the scientist knows that it's preposterous to argue that you should not follow the logical assumption. You should, with the information that's given. And what is the information that's given? The formation of the righteous is greater than the formation of the wicked, right? It's right there in the word, information. So what is the information about the formation of these contrary groups? Well, the righteous martial artist, with all of his heart, does what is precisely right. And that must transcend everything else. So when people don't follow that path, when they don't listen to what I have to say, they're wasting their lives. Because they're not choosing the essence of righteousness. They're not choosing applied righteousness. They're not choosing to practice righteousness. They're not choosing to be righteous enough to accept that the divine order is a martial arts order. And so when I say martial is marital and Christ is a bridegroom, say someone's walking by and hearing that, they would know that I'm right. Why would they know? Because they have to address the martial art argument. You can't just say, I had a dream and your martial arts sense means nothing. We have to go based on the empirical evidence, but your senses mean nothing. The essential alpha essence to sense the presence of God is an argument that they have to address. It's an idea that they have to address. So What is the vision of the visionary and why? Are they scatterbrained? Are they on drugs? Are they delusional? What information do they have that they believe validates their vision? The comparison is part of why I'm right. And I don't come from a long line of privileged people sabotaging other people. I have no ulterior motives. And as I tell you this, you know it's not logical to think that I have an ulterior motive. What would it be? Because I'm telling you what you need to know to do what is right. And they have no viable counter argument. And yes, it favors me because righteousness favors the righteous. The idea of righteousness transcending other things favors the righteous. That's why I'm reliable, because you can rely on the fact that I've dedicated myself to righteousness, and therefore I make the just and fair claim that righteousness transcends everything else and puts me above everyone else, and that is something that is the right thing to believe. That takes you on the right path to do the right thing. So it goes back to my argument of Mr. Right, in his right mind, doing the right thing, on the right path, who's righteous, who's right for you. Focus, moral intensity to fight for what is right in the true light, the way, the truth, and the life. The life is fighting the good fight of not just faith, but faith that bears fruit. John 15, faith that bears fruit in the true vine. And I am the true vine. How do you know? You know because of the works. You know them by their works. The good tree of monotheistic martial arts has borne fruit. God controlling that tree of life, that tree of martial life, that tree of the marriage between God and his faithful, between God and a formation of the faithful, has brought forth fruit. And therefore the kingdom of heaven is upon you. And those who oppose me are representing the kingdom of hell. Satan means adversary. Why would you oppose me? For mere social orders? For a life that's short so you can pretend to be important? Why would they oppose righteousness unless they were wickedness, unless they were the children of wickedness, and their hearts are wicked and contorted and callous and insensitive and unjust? Their hearts breathe and beat to the tune of romantic injustice. And I live and die for romantic justice. And part of the reason you see me out here alone all the time is because attractive women who I deem worthy to be my mate shun me. Or worthy to be my mate if they follow the precepts that I teach, they shun me. Submission to righteousness is being greater than you otherwise would. And it's being greater than those who don't submit to righteousness, because righteousness makes you better. Instead of low down, dirty, no good on a spectrum, you become better. You become a good person, a great person, a divine and sacred person. So as I proceed down my course, running in the paths of God's commands, like it says in Psalms, finding joy in teaching righteousness. When people walk by, no matter who they are, what age they are, what type of person they are, I take some kind of pleasure in telling them the truth. I say, this is the truth. This is that righteousness that has me out here every day. This is the righteousness that I'm willing to die for. I put everything I have into righteousness. My faith is in the source of righteousness, which is God Almighty. And I have enough faith to live and die for that, and not just to say it. A deep faith, a deep attachment, a deep connection, a deep bond with God that allows me to triumph over the wicked. And anyone who cheats me out of my right to lead is wicked. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not cheat, steal, mislead, lie. And if you do, you have accepted the way and the course of wickedness. The path of the righteous is like the morning sun shining ever brighter to the full light of day. Wisdom walks in the way of righteousness along the paths of justice. Foolishness, folly, stupidity walks in the way of wickedness along the paths of injustice.